They thought they had silenced her forever. Her words erased. Her testimony buried. But what they didn't know is that she had left behind one final secret. A recording so powerful, it would shatter their plan and force the truth into the light. Her name was Elena Ramirez, a 32-year-old woman from a quiet Midwestern town. To most, she seemed ordinary, friendly, hardworking, devoted to her family. But behind closed doors, Elena lived in fear. For years, she had been harassed, threatened, and stalked by a man who wanted to control her every move. When she finally stepped forward to testify against him, it was her chance to break free. But what happened in that courtroom would prove more chilling than anything she could have imagined. Elena spoke for nearly an hour, detailing the harassment, the threats, and the night she thought she wouldn't survive. Her words were brave. They were raw. And they were damning. But weeks later, when court records were released, something was wrong. Entire sections of her testimony had vanished, key details gone. The most incriminating statements erased. It was as if Elena had never spoken them at all. What the people trying to silence her didn't know was that Elena had anticipated this. She had slipped a small voice recorder into her bag before taking the stand. Every word of her testimony was captured, her voice steady at times, trembling at others, but unshakably determined. She knew someone might try to bury her truth, so she made sure it couldn't die with her. Months after the trial, when Elena was no longer there to fight for herself, her sister discovered the device tucked deep inside a drawer. On it was a recording, untouched, unedited, undeniable. The audio soon leaked, first to a local reporter, then to activists, and finally to the world. And when people heard Elena's trembling voice for the first time, the outrage was impossible to contain. But as the recording spread, something else began to surface. A detail hidden in the background, something Elena never mentioned in her testimony, and it changes everything. The leak of Elena's secret recording shocked the community. Her trembling voice cut through the silence, exposing not only the threat she endured, but also the failure of a system meant to protect her. People demanded answers. Judges, lawyers, even police officials were forced to explain how such crucial testimony could vanish from the record. But while the public focused on what Elena said, few noticed what was hidden behind her words. In the recording, just as she pauses to take a breath, a faint sound emerges, a clicking noise. Then a man's voice, muffled, but there. It wasn't in the official transcript. It wasn't supposed to exist. Investigators replayed the audio dozens of times. Some swore they heard a single phrase whispered in the background, a warning. Others believed it was something far more chilling, a name. If the recording was real, Elena hadn't been alone in that courtroom. Someone close to her, someone who was never supposed to be there, had spoken. And once people realized who it might be, the case took a darker turn. Because if that voice was who many suspected, then Elena's death was no accident. The leaked recording had already shaken public trust. But when investigators listened more closely, the faint voice in the background became the focus of the entire case. The sound was subtle, almost easy to miss, a low murmur buried beneath Elena's testimony. At first, experts dismissed it as courtroom noise, but audio specialists enhanced the file, isolating the whisper. What they found was undeniable. It was a man's voice, and it spoke just 3 words. The problem was, no one could agree on what those words were. Some believed it was a direct threat. Others claimed it was a warning meant for Elena herself. But then came the theory that sent shockwaves through the small town, because a handful of people swore the whisper wasn't random at all. They believed the voice said her name. If that was true, then whoever whispered it wasn't just in the room. They were addressing Elena directly. And if they were close enough to whisper her name that day, then they might have been close enough to silence her forever. The whisper in Elena's recording left everyone unsettled. But whispers don't exist without a source. Someone was in that courtroom the day she testified. Someone who was never supposed to be there. At first, investigators combed through the attendance records. Every name was accounted for. The judge, the lawyers, the clerks, and a few scattered spectators. But none of them matched the voice on the tape. Then came the eyewitness reports. Several people recalled seeing a man standing near the courthouse entrance that day. He wasn't listed in the transcripts, nor in the official log of attendees. He was just there, watching. Descriptions of the man varied. Some said he was tall, wearing a dark coat. Others remembered only his eyes, sharp, unblinking, as if studying every person who entered the building. But the detail that appeared in nearly every account was this: no one remembered seeing him leave. Weeks later, a grainy photograph surfaced. It was taken by a college student who had been documenting a protest near the courthouse that afternoon. In the corner of one frame, almost blurred into background, stood a figure in black, half hidden by the crowd. When the image was enhanced, the figure's face became clearer. And that's when Elena's family made a chilling claim. They had seen that man before. The photograph of the man in black unsettled Elena's family. They swore they had seen him before, not once, but several times. Near her home, outside her work, and once parked in a car across the street, just watching. If he was the same man from the courthouse, then his presence wasn't coincidence. It was surveillance. But proving his identity wasn't easy. The grainy photo wasn't enough to name him, so investigators turned to something else: the courthouse archives. Every case leaves a trail of documents, transcripts, exhibits, files. And if Elena had been marked, the paper trail might explain WHYT first. The search turned up nothing unusual. Boxes of routine paperwork, neatly labeled and stored, until one file appeared in the system. A file connected directly to Elena's harasser. A file that, according to the archive log, had already been checked out once before. When journalists demanded access, the file was gone, vanished without explanation. No sign of who removed it, no record of who authorized it. But not everything had disappeared. Inside the box where the file should have been, a single page remained. One page. On it, there was no testimony, no transcripts, no evidence. Just a name. And when investigators read it, they realized the case wasn't just about Elena anymore. The single page left behind in the courthouse file raised more questions than it answered. One name, no context, no explanation, just a trail leading deeper into the shadows. But before investigators could act, something unexpected happened. Another case emerged, one with eerie similarities to Elena's. This time, it wasn't in her small Midwestern town. It was hundreds of miles away, in another state. A woman had come forward with her own allegations of harassment and intimidation. And just like Elena, she claimed her testimony had been altered. When reporters gained access to her hearing, they were stunned, because buried in the background audio, almost inaudible, was the same chilling whisper. At first, many thought it was coincidence. Courtrooms are noisy places, but when the sound was enhanced, it was unmistakable. The same voice, the same low tone. And this time, the whisper was clearer. It spoke not just a name, but a warning. 2 different women, 2 different courts, and the same voice haunting them both. If it appeared in one case, it could be dismissed. But twice? That meant something larger was happening. Something carefully hidden. And when investigators tried to trace the audio source, they found a disturbing pattern. The voice had surfaced before. Not once, not twice, but multiple times, tied to cases that ended the same way. Each victim silenced, each testimony altered, each file missing, which led to one terrifying question. How many more Elenas are out there?